understood that money is nothing but just energy, nothing else, everything changed in a matter of weeks. When I first started my company, it's so funny because my goal that I first had for a month is like we're making more than that in a day now.
And for me, that was a huge eye opener. That's a problem. That's like not an okay way to live, because I am completely living dictated by other people's wants from me, their wants and needs and their emotions, And okay, today I am joined by Natalia Graf, who is the CEO and founder of Sync Equestrian. And the reason I was so pumped to have you on is actually stemmed from our conversation about a week ago, where we had with somebody on our team named Hannah, where you were talking about some of the areas of manifestation in your business. And it's been personally something that I've been trying to work on. It's a joke in our business that I'm the very analytical one, facts driven one. That's how my brain has always been my entire life. And I'm trying to rewire it. And it's hard. It's very hard, but I've started to see benefits of it. But following your journey, being years ahead of what you've been doing, launching Sync Equestrian back in 2019, I've always felt inspired by what you've been able to do, especially the last couple of years. And I'm excited to have you on and hear a little bit more about your story and kind of how you've been able to use this in your business, and also how you're planning to help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I always love doing podcasts and talking about this kind of stuff. I think it's, for one, it's super important to have an analytical brain as well. I think when we talk about manifestation, the word has been misused so much that people are just constantly like throwing it around. Like, I manifested this and I manifested that. And, sometimes we can get caught up with thinking that manifestation means you're like in la la land and you're just
Yeah.
like visualizing and it's coming and it's happening. And while all of that is great and it is a part of manifestation, doing the work and being business savvy is just as important. I think a lot of my business's success does come from the spiritual work that I do. I would contribute maybe 80% of my success to
Wow.
that, but that other 20%, yeah, that other 20% is me also listening to the nudges, doing the work, overcoming procrastination, when the fear kicks in, having discipline to go through and do the things that sometimes as a business owner I don't want to do. So spirituality and the law of action go hand in hand. Like, you can't
Mm,
just be completely spiritual and just live in this world and say, oh, it's just gonna come and happen. Like, you also have to put in the work. And a lot of the time
yeah.
people blame, or they don't want to face the fear of doing something, so they keep putting themselves back to spirituality and keeping like this limited box of like, no, I'm safe here. I'm going to manifest, because they're too afraid to go ahead and actually do the work that it takes to achieve those goals. So I just want to put that out there first, because I do think you have to be business savvy. But if you add spirituality to that combination, like you just said, you have an analytical brain. Now, if you add that part to it, like, there's no stopping you. There's no stopping you. We are all built limitless. It's our mindset that's actually stopping us from going to where we want to go. I always say the thing that's in the way of you, and let's say your goal is $20 million, is your limited mindset, and that's it.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And one thing about your journey that interests me a lot is, and by the way, no hate against anybody who's built a business off of mindfulness manifestation, all the
Yeah.
power. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my resources, like Bob Proctor, etc. But
Oh, I
one
love
thing
him.
that's
Yeah.
really cool about your journey is the result of your work has actually came in the form of a business completely outside of manifestation, in a way, where you ran an e-commerce business selling physical products, right? Could you share a
Yeah.
little bit about that business? And also, when you started this going back to 2019, was this law of attraction manifestation, was that even something that was in your conscious back then? Or was that something that you developed over time? Like, what did it look like in the early beginnings?
So, how it all kind of unfolded for me, I had a corporate job that I absolutely hated. I did business to business sales to Fortune 500 companies. And my days were like cold calling. And then I had to schedule like literally 8 to 10 meetings a week with C-level executives to go and sell a service. So you had to convince these C-level execs on the phone to meet with you, and then I'd meet with them, and I ranked up, and I'm very competitive in nature, so I worked really hard and I did really well, but I was completely miserable and I hated my job and I hated my life. So then I kind of got into spirituality, and that's what gave me the courage to quit my job and start living a life that I wanted to create. This is when I realized that I'm the creator of my life. If I'm
Yeah.
unhappy doing something, and some people are extremely happy working for someone else, but me personally, it kills me. Like, I cannot work for anyone, and I know this about myself now, which is why I started my own company. But I realized that I'm the creator, so I can either choose to be in the driver's seat or I can be in the passenger seat and let someone else drive the ship. And I decided in that moment that I wanted to drive my own ship. So I quit my job and I really got into spirituality, and I started to, watch things on YouTube on like things that make a lot of money. And for me, it was important to create abundance, but I wanted to do it in a way where I would make money even while I was sleeping. I wanted to find a
Right.
way to make money while I was doing the things that I enjoy. And that was really, really important to me. So my first journey was and I was getting into spirituality and the law of attraction, and I started a digital marketing agency, which I realized I was really good at doing the sales of it, but doing, like, and I've told you the story, the Facebook ads and all
I
of those
always forget
things.
about this, and it always every time you tell this part of the story, I always forget that you did that back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm really bad at this part. So I ended up outsourcing that portion of the job, but I also realized that I wanted to create a product. I've always had this passion of solving a problem with a product since I was in high school. I would come up with all these cool ideas of like products, and I was dreaming. I was like 16 years old. I didn't have funds to launch anything, but it was something I was always into. So the digital marketing job really helped me understand how digital marketing worked when it came to Facebook ads, Instagram. I don't even think TikTok was around then. It was like Google ads, and how many different platforms of advertisement there are online. So then I thought to myself,
Yeah.
okay, I need to create a product that solves a big problem. And then I outsourced the marketing job because I just didn't want to do that anymore. I just wanted to focus solely
Right.
on the product. So the first three products that I launched were breeches. And in the equestrian world, because I've been riding since I was 6 years old. My horse, who's like in the background, has helped me tremendously when it came to finding myself as I was going through this big transformation of like quitting my 9 to 5 and really finding out who I am through spirituality and what was important to me. Horses were always there for me in that way. So I wanted to create a product around something that I was passionate about, which was riding horses, being with horses, anything equestrian. So I saw a
Yeah.
huge problem in the market when it came to fit and clothes just being comfortable, functional, stylish. Like all these clothes
Yeah.
were so outdated. And I have a fashion background in New York for 12 years. So I brought that into our designs as well. And I just created products that were not only super comfortable and flattering on all body types and ages, but also very fashionable. And people just felt really empowered wearing them. So we launched three products and they sold out so quickly. I was so shocked, and I contribute the law of attraction to this because as I was working on these three products, I was constantly visualizing, doing the work for manifestation, feeling like I already sold out. Um, when I designed, it would be through my heart center. I'm like very much into meditation. That's something I still do every single day. And especially on the days where I'm like, I don't have time, I sit down and I meditate even longer because that just tells me I need to really meditate.
Wow. That's the
So I
key
did
right there.
all of
On days you don't have time, doing it longer. I don't know. Like that
exactly,
point right there goes like it's. I think of it in terms of like days I don't feel like working out. Do it longer. I don't know. Like that just point stuck with
exactly.
me, and I had to write it down. Keep going though. This is great.
So then we launched three products. We went from three products to like nine products to like, I don't know. Now we're at like 50 plus products. Honestly, don't even know how many products we have. But the law of attraction and manifestation really helped me get off the ground. It helped me overcome fear. It helped me overcome procrastination by connecting to myself and my own intuition, I learned how to trust my decision making. I think a lot of people who are first going into business are so afraid of making decisions themselves because they don't believe in them. But when you do this work of spirituality, you find this new level of confidence and trusting in your intuition and knowing that you've got it. And I think that is so important when you first start out. Like, the thing that'll take you from 5 figures to 6 figures to 7 figures to even 8 figures is knowing that you can do it and truly believing in yourself, even on the days where you wake up and you have imposter syndrome and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how do I have this? Like, no one's going to buy my stuff. Like, who cares about my brand? You know, on those days, you have to push even harder. And it takes a certain level of mental strength to get to those points. And you can't do that without doing the self growth work, without doing the spiritual work. And when new entrepreneurs always ask me, like, what's the number one thing you would tell me to do? My answer is self growth. Constantly work on yourself. Read all the books that you can about self growth. Read all the books that you can about understanding your brain and your habits and how you can change them. Because in order to grow, you must change. If you continuously stay the same and you stay in your comfort zone, how can you even grow? There's no growth. You'll just stay the same, which is fine. Some people just want to stay the same and they're not comfortable growing, and that's okay. But if you are ambitious and you want more things and you want to achieve all these goals, you have to get out that zone and learn new things and apply new things to yourself. And you can't do that without rewiring your brain. That's science, you know? People talk about manifestation like it's so spiritual, but that's why I love Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he really breaks down the science of your brain and how manifestation and the quantum physics, it's all science based, you know? So, yeah.
Right. No, that's amazing. And prior to me understanding, that was such a good explanation of especially the early days and your first three products. I didn't know how quickly you sold out of those in the beginning, right? And that's just a testament to what you've been able to do. I sometimes attribute it, before I started learning about this, I remember that there would be times where let's say new business was slow, right? In our agency, like bringing on new clients, things just weren't clicking the way that I wanted it to. And then you bring on a client, you get that signed contract, and then I have that feeling of confidence, hope, etc. And I realized that things would happen after that, because like the next thing would happen and I would send that message that I was uncomfortable to do before, etc. And I used to always think to myself, I wish that was replicatable, that feeling, right? I wish I could get this feeling when I didn't just get a new agreement, but I wish I could just have my mind always in that place, and I could manually get myself into that space. I used to always think that. It would be like, and I realized that with this, and maybe let me know if this is how it works or from your perspective, but that's a way of having that feeling of confidence and abundance and knowing that it's coming and feeling that it's coming, even when it's not there yet, even when you don't see that sign thing, but you start taking the actions towards it. And I realize when I have that feeling of like, that feeling of just adrenaline and confidence, I do things that I don't do when I don't have it, which is where the effect comes from. Did that kind of tie it together from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, you just explained, how it works, and your inner knowing probably knew that, and that's why you kept having
Yeah.
those thoughts, because our inner knowing always knows. It's all the stuff we put on top of it that makes it hard to hear. But once you remove those layers, you can hear your inner knowing so much more clear. And when you're in that vibrational state of what you just explained, of being in the now and knowing that, it has already happened and you can feel like this now. You don't have to wait for something to feel that way.
Yeah.
You start bringing it into your quantum reality now, because your brain can't tell the difference if something has happened now or if it's happening in the future, if you get those feelings within yourself right now. And that is the key. The other thing it goes back to is a lot of the time, business owners or just people in general always say, okay, like when I hit 1 million in sales, I'm gonna be so happy. I made it. I'm confident. I'll be confident, for example, right? Or if I lose 20 pounds, I feel really, really good. But the key is feeling that right now, because what you're really saying is that I'm not worthy of feeling those feelings right now. Once I hit those goals, I'm worthy then, and then I get to feel that way. But what you're really doing is creating so much resistance, and the law of attraction does not answer to resistance, right? It only
Mm.
comes to you when you're in the flow. So think of yourself like a river and you're always in the flow. As soon as you add resistance, it's like rocks in the river and the water can't flow. So if you want things to really come to you, you have to be one, open to receiving them and knowing that you're worthy, which is another big issue a lot of people have. They're not comfortable receiving anything, receiving help, receiving compliments,
Mm.
receiving support, and you're just shutting yourself down. So what does the universe say when it comes to abundance even? You're not going to receive it. And I think over the last year, what I've really focused on, which took us to seven figures, is how I worked with the energy of money in particular. So the law of attraction helped me get off the ground, right? The doing the work, the manifestation, the self growth work, which I do continuously, like it never stops. But that really helped me get off the ground and create confidence and self assurance and connected me to my inner knowing and my intuition more to get started. But what really took me to like seven figures, or we even went from like doing 20,000 in sales to 160,000 in sales and scaling to 200,000 and so on, is working with the energy of money in particular. Because once I
Mm.
understood that money is nothing but just energy, nothing else, everything changed in a matter of weeks. Because money responds to your energy. Money does not respond, and this is gonna pluck a lot of feathers.
Go
Money
there,
does not,
please, please.
people are gonna be like this. Money does not respond to hard work. Money
Mm.
responds to your energy, which is why you sometimes see the most hardworking people are not making the most money.
Yeah, yeah.
Money responds to your frequency towards it. If you're constantly in a state of limitation, and I used to do this when I did this maybe the first 2.5 years of my company, oh, almost 3 years, because I really got into this over the last year. Yeah. When you're pissed off every time you spend money, for example, when you have to pay a bill, you're like, that sucks. That's a limitation that you're already putting out, right? You're already telling the universe, oh, I don't like money. Money, there's a resistance with it, right? Or every time you go and you get gas, you're like, fuck, gas prices are so high. And you have this like constant, like, your nervous system almost goes up in your body when you have to spend money, for example. That's a sign that you are not looking at money like the resource that it is. You have a very limited mindset. And what do you get in return when you think like that? More bills, more things you have to pay. Sometimes people say, well, when it rains, it really pours. It's because that frequency has been put out there, and all of these things are just attacking
Mm.
you at this point because that's what you're putting out. Because money
Yeah.
responds to your energy. So instead, what really helped me is like every time I get gas now, I never think, oh, look at these gas prices. I think I'm so grateful that I can even get gas and get from point A to B.
Mm.
Every time I have to pay my employees or contractors, I think, oh my God, thank God for them. They've really helped me grow my business. Like I enjoy paying them. They're working, and this is what they do. And it's all connected. Money is a transaction. When I go out to eat, I tip extremely well. Sometimes I tip to the point where people think I'm like nuts. I tip 25%, sometimes 30%. Because again, money is an unlimited resource. And when I have that mindset, I make so much more money in sales. Once I started to apply this, my sales just exploded. And I really understood that the frequency of money is just energy. And if I limit myself to receiving it, it doesn't come to me. If I'm constantly in this scarcity state of spending it, I can't grow my company. Another beautiful thing that happened is after I worked with the energy of money and I realized all of these laws in particular with money, I started to take more risks in my business. Because before I was afraid, for example, to buy more inventory because I would
Mm.
think, oh my God, like I'm spending six-figure, amounts of money to my manufacturer. Like, what if I don't sell this? What if there was like this scarcity attached to making business decisions, even? But once I understood that it's an unlimited resource and my sales depend on my frequency and how I am doing things, everything shifted. The money that I spent on the inventory sold, and now I keep getting riskier and riskier in my business, and I have no fear attached to it. And the only thing it's done is it's really grown my business tremendously over the last year. to the point where I keep having to outsource more help to help us package orders because we're like, we can't even do this anymore, which is beautiful. But it's
Right.
all because I changed the way I work with money. Money is
Yeah.
nothing but energy.
One thought that I have with your business is, with the idea of money, because it's sometimes it's just a hard one to wrap your head around, but when you do, you start to see the result of it, like you said, is
Absolutely.
even when you think of like advertising, where you go from taking what you might have made an entire year in salary, and now that's what I'm paying per month in advertising for my business. I
Yeah.
know that for me, I'm even in marketing, and I'm like, sometimes you just get you get your head into things, and you get fearful, and you see these dollars and dollars and dollars. It's like, how obviously you've went from 3 products to 50, your revenue scaled, but also your marketing, your team, like, is that truly what it is, of just changing, like when you see an advertising charge or you see a contractor, you just look at it in a different light and reframe your mindset? Is that really what the
Yeah.
practice looks like? Is there anything else there? Because it's just, I'm thinking of the listeners out there, right, who are saying, you know let's say I'm making 5 to 10 grand in my business, right, and I really really want to get to 100,000. Like, what are some of the things that I should be incorporating into my daily life, like my daily routines, to be able to do this? Like, obviously, number one is reframing your mindset. Is there anything over the past 2 years that you've been doing that you found like to be irreplaceable in terms of effect?
Yeah, so I take at least an hour and a half every morning to myself, and I know that's a luxury. I don't have children, but I also think that sometimes, like let's say you do have kids, you can make that time. You might just have to wake up really early, but it's so
Yeah.
important to wake up, and really calm your nervous system first thing in the morning. Because biologically, if you think about it, our ancestors were being chased by lions and things, right? So they would wake up and they will get chased and their nervous system will go up. But the benefit they had is after the chase was over, their nervous system will come back down, right? In today's world, the lion is actually our phone. It's all the notifications that we get. It's all the emails that we get. It's the new everything that's like ding 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 all day long, right? So this ding 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 is keeping your nervous system on 24/7. And if you can't shut it off, your decision making is also not going to be as good. So the first thing I do every morning is have my coffee and I sit there and I meditate. And I meditate for 30 to 40 minutes. If I have even more time, I do a walking meditation. I go outside in nature. And I know meditation is something that's, you can't go to 40 minutes if you've never done it before, but you can start somewhere because meditation is just a muscle like that you go and you work at the gym. So you start with 5 minutes, you get to 10 minutes, and people are always like, I don't know how to meditate. The meditation is just being present. And there's so many guided meditations you can do on YouTube now too that really help you become more present. But even if you can stay present for 5 minutes, that's a win, right? So wake up, try to do that, really get your nervous system on point before you even check your phone. Breath work is another thing, which for me, it's part of my meditation. The breath work is in there, but breath work really regulates your nervous system. So I go into my day already, like, and I expand my energy. I get like really into working with my energy centers, and I make my energy really, really big, especially on days where I feel like, oh, I'm not really feeling this today. I feel small. I don't want to talk. I then make my energy even bigger and I visualize it like leaving my house and I throw my hands around and I allow myself to get really, really big, especially on those days, right?
Mm.
And so then when I start my day, I'm already at a different frequency. Because let's say I didn't do this and I woke up and I've got text messages from my employees or, customers or whatever, and they're pissing me off and there's stress happening and things are not going right. I'm waking up in this completely different mindset of I want to kill everybody. My nervous system is on. I'm angry. I'm stressed. I'm X, Y, and Z. But if I wake up and I first control how I want to start the day, nothing exterior is going to shake me up on the inside, which is so
Mm.
important. As an entrepreneur, as a person in general, once you figure out how to always control your inner state and never allow outside circumstances to shake you up, the entire game will change. you are now not only the creator and the driver of your life, but you're also in sole control of what you want to put out. Because if you allow outside circumstances to shake you up, you're putting out the frequency of anger, of stress, of sadness, of guilt, of or whatever. And the universe responds to your energy. So that's what you get in return. But once you learn that you are the sole creator of what you put out, you get to control what you bring in also. And our thoughts create our emotions, and our emotions create our thoughts. And sometimes you can easily, and which creates your reality, right? Because what you put out on an energetic level comes back to you. So
Right.
sometimes it's really easy to get into this hamster wheel. And I used to be very depressed, when I first quit my job, my corporate job, and I was going through this transition. I was extremely depressed because I felt like my whole world fell apart as I was understanding spirituality and everything. I just felt, like the dark night of the soul, some may call it. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah.
extremely depressed. And it's a hamster wheel. Sometimes it's really hard to get out, especially when you're really, really low, because your feelings and your thoughts are just constantly going. And now you're in this depressing state. You're sad, you're angry, and it's so hard to get out, but you've got to force yourself out of there. And the best way to do that is meditation and also exercising and getting sunlight. So if
Yeah.
if whoever's listening is currently, in this hamster wheel of not feeling good and they don't know how to get out of it, I always say just listen to some guided meditations, work with gratitude, because gratitude, not only does gratitude automatically get your vibration up, but it also brings in so much more. Gratitude is like one of the other secret ingredients of manifesting and bringing in what you want. Already feeling grateful for what you have, right? And then, yeah, getting out in sunlight and exercising. So I also work out every morning. And I can't do it at the end of the day. I have to do it after I meditate. So I have like this whole morning routine for myself that does it sometimes get shaken up every once in a while because stuff comes up? Yes, but for the most part, I
Sure.
try to stick to it 95% of the time. And it really helps me
Wow.
control my day. It sets me up for success. Working out for me is also a mental challenge because I'm a runner and I push through, my runs, or when I'm lifting weights and doing things, my body is like, no, we can't, we can't, we can't. But my mind is like, no, but we're going to do it anyway. And that's how you
Right.
condition yourself. So, yeah, I highly recommend just finding a morning routine that speaks to you, that makes you feel at peace, that calms your nervous system. Some people just want to go walk in nature. Let that be it. Clear your mind. Just take a walk for yourself.
Yeah, that's so good. It's, for me, there was a time where, and all of this is making sense in my brain because I went on a 2 day no technology retreat last year where we went to this guy's house with 20 other marketers who do similar things to we, and we just masterminded and spent time together and broke bread together and all that good stuff. And at the end of the 2 day event, um, the the leader, his name was Alex, he said, "How's everybody feeling today?" And I really felt called to just say, I said, I don't know how I feel because I'm so used to my phone and my computer dictating my feelings. Like
Hmm.
opening up your phone and there's great news. Clients are killing it. Things are good. Employees are happy. Culture's high. I'm in a good mood. Clients unhappy. Transactions coming out of my account left and right. I'm now unhappy. And I said, because I didn't have that access, I didn't know how to feel. And for me, that was a huge eye opener.
Wow.
That's a problem. That's like
Yeah.
not an okay way to live because I am completely living dictated by other people's wants from me, their wants and needs and their emotions. And how many
Yeah.
times do you find that somebody's really upset, but and it's really no big deal, it gets blown over, but like you sat in misery for hours because of that. And
Yeah.
what you're saying is don't let other people control your day. And whereas, listen, Tony Robbins always says, I'm Tony Robbins, but I get pissed off and upset sometimes. But
Yeah.
it happens a very, very, very minimal amount of time. And I know how to regulate myself out of that quickly, right? I don't sit
Hmm.
in misery for 2 days. I realize it. I let myself sit there for a couple of minutes and then I do my technique to get out of it. Whereas if you don't have a morning routine, like if you're waking up, getting out of bed, and leaving the house and going right to work, you're almost setting yourself up for a
Right.
hard time, right? That's so
Yes.
interesting. Another thing you said about the meditation, for those who are listening, who this is something new towards, the first time I ever did meditation, I did it in a group setting, and it was, so we did it. It was led by somebody else. And at the end of it, the guy who was leading it said, "How long do you think we were doing the meditation for?" And I remember I said, "I think about 25, 30 minutes, I'd say, give or take." And everyone said something similar. And he goes, "No, that was 5 minutes long." And I, like, my mind was like blown by it because I felt like I was sitting there in silence, breathing for
Yeah.
the, I felt like it was forever. You know what I mean? Like, and to find out it was only 5 minutes, it just goes to show that it's a muscle and you
Hmm.
can't just stop there because it was uncomfortable. It'll get to a
Yeah,
point where you're doing it all the time, right? So
absolutely.
that's so
And it takes
powerful.
commitment. It takes commitment. Like, how bad do you want it? How
Yeah.
bad do you want to reach all your goals? Some people don't want to, like, they have this fear, they say they want things, but there's like a deep fear underneath where they prevent themselves from going there. And anytime I'm like discouraged to do something, I'm like, how bad do I want this? And
Yeah.
then I get like fired up, because I really want it. Like, I want this brand to be 8 figures and 9 figures, and I want my brand to be everywhere. Like, I want it, so I'll do
Yeah.
whatever it takes. And I know doing the spiritual work will take me there much faster than trying to do it the traditional way of what's been taught in society, right? Like drilling, hustling, hustling. That's not how stuff really works anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I continue to meditate even on the days I don't want to. That's why I continue to do the self-growth, stuff. That's why I continue to read books even when I don't feel like it. It's because I want this so bad that I'll do whatever it fucking takes to get me there. Also, the other thing, like you said, we all have days where we are angry and we are not feeling great. And I think it's okay to feel anger too. That's like an important thing to understand. Like, sometimes I feel like this positive culture is always trying to say feel positive all the time, but it's impossible as a human being. And if you're positive all the time, you can't appreciate when things are amazing either. You need to have a scale of emotions. But the trick for
Mm.
me was to not judge anger. Like, I don't look at anger anymore and say, God, I don't want to feel this way. Or, like, why am I so angry? Because when you look at anger like in a bad way, it automatically puts the resistance there because you're telling yourself, oh, it's bad, it's bad. So I just accept it and I'm aware of it. And just by accepting and being aware, you shift out of it. It's magic. So every time you feel yourself not being where you want to be, bring yourself back to awareness and accept whatever you're feeling. And that's how you come out of it so easily instead of staying in that loop. And
Right. Right.
meditation also helps with that because the more I started meditating, the more I caught myself in the like throughout my days in real life, not just when I was meditating, when I was shifting away from where I wanted to be. So I would bring myself
Right.
back, I became aware, and boom, I was out of that emotion and up on a different one.
Right. Right. One thought that I had that I wanted to circle back to was in the idea of money mindset and abundance and finances. How do you go about goal setting? Because that's like, when you think about it in the early stages of your business, I'm sure like the first goal was something like, I just want to replace my income, or I want to make enough to pay rent or whatever, like put food on the
Yeah,
table. And it's like, and I remember for me, even in the early days, it was like, if I can just do this full time, that would be amazing. You know what I mean? And then you do
yes,
it full
that's
time and
so,
you're like, well,
I
now
think
I
that's
want to earn
every,
this and I want to earn that. And it's always like,
yeah,
oh, it's always the next thing. And I've kind of personally accepted myself that I'm never going to be done. It's always going to be the next thing. So
yeah,
that kind of falls into the idea of enjoying the process more so than the end goal. Like, I
yeah,
enjoy the process of getting there. And then when I hit it, I think it's going to be this amazing party. And really, I usually feel personally unsettled inside, usually because I'm already thinking about the next thing. That's more
yeah.
work I need to do, but that's sometimes how I feel. How do you go about setting new goals for your business when you achieve them, right? So you mentioned you're going to hit 100, 200K. Let's say that might be the next
Yeah.
goal. You hit that. How do you a celebrate that and live in it in a moment, and then also how do you plan for the next goal? Yeah, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so we all have what I call a money meter, right? So we're all comfortable with a certain number. So let's say when I first started my company, it's so funny because my goal that I first had for a month is like we're making more than that in a day now. So
Right,
it's just
right,
insane when you take a perspective now and you're like, holy shit, like you said, most entrepreneurs when they first start their company, just want to make up for whatever they were getting in salary to make a living. And then like when it blows out of proportion, it's like amazing. It's amazing. But so we all have a money meter that we're comfortable with. And this is when I first got into this money work also, because I started to notice a pattern. So I would hit really big numbers and I will get for the month and I will get really, really excited. But deep down, there was a fear of me and this number. I felt like I wasn't, this is like a deep subconscious belief because on the outside, I'd be like, yeah, we hit this, we're doing it, da da da. But deep, deep down, there was a fear of me not feeling worthy of even making that much money. And I wasn't
Mm,
aware of it until I started to notice like a yo yo pattern. So it'd be really, really high. And then the sphere will come up and I would almost sabotage myself and bring my number down to what I was comfortable with receiving. So I started to notice this pattern, and once I got into the energetic work of money more, and I took some courses from amazing people too who were making like nine figures doing energetic money work, and they talked about the money thermometer and how what you're comfortable with is what you bring in. So then they told me to like play around with it a little bit. So instead of increasing it by like 50,000 or 100,000, do it gradually and make that number really, really comfortable to you. And also take up your number that's your bare minimum. Every business has like a bare minimum they're comfortable with. And they're like, this is
mm,
what we hit at the bare minimum. And when you really think about it, and this is how powerful this money work is, when you really think about it, since you've made that your bare minimum number, all entrepreneurs always hit that number no matter what because they've made it the
yes.
bare minimum and it
Yes.
always
Yep.
comes
Yep.
because energetically that's what you've tuned into. So now increase your what you want to hit for the month a little bit, but also increase that bare minimum number. Make yourself
Yeah.
really comfortable with it. And when I first started playing around with this concept, I was only doing like 10,000 more a month or maybe 20,000, but now I've been more comfortable doing 50K more a month, like adding it to my meter because I'm getting so
Yep.
much more comfortable with bigger numbers that the more you do it, the faster you start scaling. Like I want 300,000 a month. I want 500,000 a month, you know? And that it's comfortable. I'm okay with that. And the crazy thing is, I don't feel that much different from versus when I was like a six-figure brand versus a seven-figure brand internally. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
money's just a number. Like I don't feel like all these thoughts that I had would happen like once I hit those numbers. Like I feel the same, which is why it's so important to really work on yourself internally because those numbers are not going to change anything. And I guarantee you, when we hit eight figures, I'm probably going to feel exactly the same that I feel now. It's just a number that keeps going higher and higher. And when you stop putting money, and this is really, really important, when you stop putting money on a pedestal and realize that money works for you and you don't work for it, it starts coming to you completely differently too.
mm. I
A
love
lot of
that so
people put
much.
money on this pedestal, you know?
I love
Make
that so
money
much.
work
I
for
heard a
you.
good quote that said, um, money doesn't buy you, it's something along the lines of money doesn't buy you happiness, but you need to have it until you believe that statement in a way. And that really
Yeah,
hit me where they either like, you know what, it's not going to buy you happiness, but you're not going to believe me until you have it. And then you'll realize how much it plays a part. I believe that,
yeah.
you know,
It
being
brings
able to,
comfort, you know?
yeah, like make payroll and go on cool trips and, you
Yeah,
know, not
absolutely.
worry about things. That's huge. But it's also, if you're unhappy now, you're not going to be happy probably if you hit a certain number. And I
Exactly.
think disconnecting that is super key. um I love that. And the bare minimum thing
Mhm.
is, for anybody listening, that is the truest statement I've ever heard. Like, that is the truest statement. My business partner and I would realize that this is me being more vulnerable than maybe I'm used to, but it's like he wants to make a certain amount, I want to make a certain amount, and we have expenses as a business, right? So there's profit and
Mhm.
then what our normal profit was. And we realized that every single month we would hit that number. We would never be below because I don't like losing money, but we would never go above it and be able to make some true profit. And this kept going on for a long time, and until we eventually kind of looked, and we're still working through our mindset around it, but we looked at each other and said, we've never not broken even, but we've never, because that's our bare minimum. And the
Yep.
way you said of raising your bare minimum is so important, because if you don't do that, you're going to just keep hitting, making your expenses, making your expenses, making your expenses, and this could go on for years unless you're being
Mm-hmm.
intentional about it. Like it's the true. It's that's like one
Exactly.
of the truest things ever. Um,
And
and it's hard. It's hard to break through. It really is. Because sometimes, like we'll even set numbers that like I don't know how we're gonna get there. You know what I mean? Where it's like a here's where we are right now. That's the number I want to be at. I don't know how to get there yet, but I'm gonna put the number out there. But then you start things start to happen. You contact that person. This person reaches out to you. You move. Things happen. When you put those big numbers
quantum
out there.
physics.
So
Yeah,
oh
that's
my
the
god, I love
quantum
it.
physics. So when you put the number out there, don't worry about the how. Don't worry about that right now, because a lot of people try to get really logical, like, okay, I have, like, let's say 300,000 goal this month, and I'm like, oh shit, like, how am I even going to get there? That's impossible, like, that can't happen. Your mind
Yeah,
starts to create limitations for you on why it can't happen, but the quantum
exactly.
physics don't respond to that, so you must act as if it has already happened and believe that it will, and then let go. Think, put that number out there, like 300,000 is the goal, put it out there, and then let go of how you're going to get there. But opportunities start happening. Sales will start going
Yeah,
up. You'll meet, different people who will help you get there. It's
right.
insane. It's yeah. And
Yeah,
awareness.
I
I
love
like
it.
what you said, that being aware of your bare minimum number. Because a lot of people are not even aware of what they've set their numbers to. You're not going
Yeah,
above a certain number in your business because you're not comfortable going higher. Deep down,
yeah,
you have fears about making more money. So if you want to grow, stop looking at everything from a logical perspective of, I need to spend more on this and that and do this, and start thinking about what numbers you set for yourself subconsciously that you're actually comfortable achieving. And once you do that work and you then increase your number, I guarantee you will hit your new numbers with less effort, more ease, and more synchronicity.
yeah. I believe that. I've seen it with your brand, and I've seen it with us. Like the way that we look at things is it's so key. It's so key. Um, I know that we're limited on time, so I have one more thought I want to throw out at you because I think this will be really beneficial, and then I want to hear about how your plans for how you're going to help people with this because I think there's so much there that I want to make sure that our audience can walk away with. If you know, obviously, step number one of the journey would probably be to watch this video again or listen to this again because I think listening. I'm a big fan of listening to things in multiple stages.
Yeah.
I just listened to a book by Bob Proctor, which is talking about change your paradigm, change your mindset, and it was all around that. And it was a great book. But the person who recommended it to me said, "Okay, great, go read it again." And because you're going to pick up so many different things that you didn't get the first time, and it's going to resonate more. So step number one is to watch this probably again. But step number two, obviously, with you being more at an advanced level, if somebody's just getting into this, they're wanting to start, they're nervous but they're ready. Like, what books, resources, courses, like what would you recommend that somebody start with to get into this world and start taking action on it?
So, who really changed my life was Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I read his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, like my Bible. He also has another one called Supernatural. He's been on so many podcasts, so you can, just go on Spotify and like search his name. He's got a show on Gaia, which you can subscribe to on YouTube. Oh no, sorry, on Amazon, called, I think it's called
Okay.
Rewiring Your Brain or something. But Dr. Joe Dispenza was like my number one go-to, because what I really liked about him is that he explains the science behind it. Because I want both, right? So I'm kind of science driven, but I'm also very spiritual. But I really wanted to understand the science, and he breaks it down beautifully, and he really explains what happens to your brain and your body on a scientific level every time you meditate. He's done thousands of heart scans and brain scans showing the before and afters of like all the DNA changes that even happen to you after you meditate. And I only do his and I'm not against any meditations in particular, but I do his meditations also. So, yeah, highly recommend him. Also, if you really want to get into more of the money side of things, Amanda Frances has a really good book. I believe it's called Rich as Fuck. I really like that book. And yeah, there's so many resources online for this stuff. And yeah, I'm releasing a course. So that has
Heck yeah.
always been a passion. I first wanted to create this business myself, applying all of these laws to make sure that it works. So instead of just coming on as a coach, I wanted to apply everything on myself, make sure it works before I even teach it to someone else. And also, I wanted to make sure I was credible enough to teach a course like this, because if I haven't lived it and I haven't scaled a business, how can I come on and teach anyone else how to do it, right? So I wanted to make sure that that was aligned first. And I always want to do this. So I'm really excited. I enjoy helping people. You know, I've suffered, I've had a 9 to 5 that I hated, I've lived it. And if I can help other people make this transition, I would just feel so blessed to, see them prosper and grow.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe I mentioned this, but what really stemmed me to even want to have this talk with you and share it with our audience, and this was the last step, was Natalia was explaining her process to a team member, Hannah and I, on a Zoom call. And Hannah and I were just like listening, like this is like the way that you were explaining it was very simple. Like you broke it down in a way that anybody could understand, right? You got it onto a normal person level of understanding, which was important. But also, secondly, like it's what you say and it's also how you say it. And like when you speak through things, it's not just you're not just saying things, but you can tell the belief is coming through you. You know what I mean? Like you do this, you believe it. You're not just saying meditate in the morning, but you actually do it, right? You're not just saying look at, but you're actually doing these things. And I also think it's really cool to be able to interact with somebody who's built an e-commerce physical product brand using this stuff. Like it's real time changes that you're seeing. And especially as you grow, you've already went from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, but also you're going to go from
Mhm.
7 to 8 and 8 to 9, right? All of these things are going to happen. And you're probably going to have more and more that you're going to be able to share with people as well. So I'll link
Absolutely.
the course below because I think it's a good buy for anybody. And when you think of the return
Yeah,
on investment of this stuff, like
absolutely.
the return on investment is second to none in a way, because if you think of
Yeah,
being able to limit your money blocks, even if like what this will do long term, this is probably one of the best investments that you can make into your life. And I know
yeah.
for me, every time I've spent, there's two ways that I see that you can give an investment. There's time or money. Both are valuable
Mhm.
for most of the listeners that are here, right? Giving of the money gives commitment and you get access to higher level stuff, but also giving of your time. So you're not just buying a course, you're buying it, but also you're taking the time to sit through and watch it and incorporate it and then come back and watch it again and actually doing the thing that they're learning. You're going to see, I think you're going to see a massive payoff. So I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to
Yeah,
change a
every
lot of
course
lives.
I've ever every course that I've ever invested in myself has brought me in so much more money, and I've invested thousands of dollars, So not only are the people who are signing up for the course getting exactly how I applied it and scaled it, but it's also all the things I've learned from these masters who have like 9-figure brands and businesses. And like I said, I learned from them, but I also applied it in my own way to see how it works best for an entrepreneur. And I think there's so much value and return. Like for what I'm charging for this course, that's like you
Yeah,
said, it's so minimal. Like you'll make so much more money even if you're not an entrepreneur, you'll find ways to create abundance in your life
yeah,
in so many different ways just by taking the course. So
yeah.
it's like a whole
I agree.
perspective shift of life.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. Big time. Big time. Well, Natalia, thank you so much for doing this. This is
Thank you.
invaluable, super beneficial. It was kind of like a masterclass for me, but I'm also going to share it with our audience too, so they can all get it. There was definitely some selfish questions I had in there, but if one person has a question, I'm sure many, many others do as well. So thank you for taking the
Absolutely.
time. I'm going to
Thank you
link
for
everything
having me.
below as well as your Instagram, your brand, etc. So if people want to not just maybe join the program, but also watch you do your thing in terms of running a business, they can also check you out there. And I think that would be great.
Awesome.